Good morning, everyone. It's really great to see, I think, a very vibrant crowd today. So on the back of a few speakers, we have been talking about trustworthy AI, AI maturity, and multiple various topics. And so I think it is the best time to actually introduce several CIOs who really are at the forefront of execution of this, right? So, so just a quick introduction of myself and also the panel speakers. My name is Alvin Kwock. I'm the co-founder of AIFT. So AIFT is a cybersecurity and insurance group for some of the future market trends, like LLM security, blockchain, Web3 security, and all that. So without further ado, so let me introduce the three speakers today. So we have Stephanie Hong, the CIO of Asian Development Bank. We have Neil Tomkinson from U-Mobile. I think you come in from Malaysia, right? So thank you so very much for coming. And also Charlotte Wong from HSBC as well. So maybe let me set the scene for a quick question. So how do you think the role of CIO is evolving with the AI adoption? And like when it comes to the skill set, when it comes to the leadership priorities, how is it different from the past? Maybe let me start with Stephanie.
Sure, thank you, Alvin. First and foremost, I think CIO role has changed over the years. I think in the past, we probably more focusing on the institutional applications, like the ERP, the CRM, and e-commerce platform. As the whole world is moving into more digitalization, we realize that actually there is a way that we can even use technology to change the business model. Think of Netflix, think of Amazon, how they actually have completely changing the business model. So now CIO is actually becoming more at the forefront of the business conversations with many of the stakeholders. So one of the key challenges, from CIO perspective is that how do we actually drive the transformational change across the whole organization? Because many of the business stakeholders, they probably are not familiar with what are the big data, what is AI, and what is machine language, and machine learning, and all this. So we do need to actually prepare our digital leadership. So one of the key important ingredients is that I have been actually working with my key stakeholder to actually develop a program, what we call the Driving Digital Leadership, to really actually help our business leader to understand how technology can change the way they do business, and also even creating new product. So with that, I think it is really a co-creation process, because in the co-creation process, we will identify new opportunities together.
That's really great. So that's on education with different stakeholders. Neil, could you maybe also quickly introduce yourself as well?
Okay, thanks. Good morning. Neil from U-Mobile, a mobile operator in Malaysia. So just in terms of what does this mean, I think IT for a long time, or CIO, is meant to be helping drive the business. This has probably kicked it up another gear. And of course, when ChatGTP and everything comes around it, and you have your C-level meetings, the CEO says, right, what are we doing for AI? And turns to look at the CIO and says, so what's the plan? But I think when you go a level down, this is organizational change. What I mean is, it's a technology. We've got to try and evolve the technology. There's a people aspect. And there even comes into a governance and security, because as soon as you go to board level and talk about AI, they list risks, and what are you doing to mitigate risks? So I think the ecosystem for AI is very big. So we're taking a bit more of a pragmatic approach, but I think it's very exciting, and we as CIOs have got to be pushed of how to do it. So I think it's a CIO job's not an easy job, and this is another challenge that's thrown at us. And I think skill set is actually another thing, because we are driving existing projects and existing business. We can't redirect all those people as well. So we have to think of how do we achieve this and not drop what else is going, because this is almost incremental. So you've got to try and build it in. So I don't think there's a straightforward, easy answer here. I think it's exciting, but it's very big. And I think it was mentioned it's a cross-functional business-wide transformation, not just a technology transformation.
Charlotte?
Thank you very much. Actually, first of all, this is Charlotte, CIO of HSBC Hong Kong. Like what Paul was saying earlier in the opening, welcome. This is actually the home of us. Welcome for actually everyone who actually come here. I think it's actually interesting that if you look at all the emerging technology in the past, so AI is the most current emerging technology, but as a CIO, we have been gone through so many years of bringing emerging technology into our company. If you think about in the days when Intellect was invented, we're probably being asked the same question, what's the new skill we need when the digital age comes? So I would say, for all these emerging technologies, CIO has always been a front foot, like what Stephanie was saying, as our CEO and our corporation of how the emerging technology would make sense for our business. And as a CIO, we are normally actually the super excited people when it comes to emerging technology. And sometimes we'll be maybe actually too excited about this technology. So on top of actually what my fellow CIO have been said, I also think using AI in this space of actually why this technology makes sense for the business is super important. So we can't be too excited about the opportunity without knowing about the risks associated with that. Ethical use in AI is a big agenda that I always remind myself of when I introduce this solution to our business. What are the associated risks? Am I making this decision as a human? Am I actually bringing the technology with a trust that actually my customer actually been putting on us? So HSBC has been exists for 160 years. So without the trust by our customer and our stakeholder, we probably won't exist today. So the one angle that I would like to add on top of actually what my fellow CIO have been saying is, as a CIO in this AI time, balance between the excitement of what this technology could do, but also don't forget about the ethical use and the ethical element of actually the AI usage. That would be my addition.
I think it's quite a consistent message. So trustworthy AI, AI maturity, all are extremely important keywords here. So maybe let me dive a little deeper in some of the topics. Neil, well, I know U-Mobile is operating in Malaysia, and Malaysia is a very interesting country that is multi-language, right? So there's English, there's some Chinese, Malay, of course, is the national language. Now, with this multilingual situation, do you think it is adding some complexity to the AI rollout?
Okay, thank you. So when we did a proof of concept last year, and one of the objectives was the language reliability. From a support, we actually only support English and Malay because Chinese is not big enough to add the complexity in for right now. But there's a third variation, which is people mix the two languages up, so quite often just move between the two languages. So we had to support what we call Menglish, which is Malaysian English as well.
We have English.
Yeah.
And we have Clandish.
Yes. So I think because people are so bilingual, it's actually quite easy to move between the two languages. So I think we managed to achieve very good results. I know, Alvin, you did mention of risk of non-English being not as safeguarded, but the approach we're taking is human in the loop. Because I suppose IT, and then when we went to upper management and board level, they were not confident on direct to customer any first initiative. So it is AI in the loop, and it's assistant, a co-pilot to the contact center agent to make them better and faster. So I think we safeguarded in that way, and through the next sort of 6 months, we'll learn a bit more and then evolve from there. But so far, those three combinations we're able to manage.
Well, this is a very important point. So maybe to add some context to what Neil just mentioned, so we actually did a white paper on the safety and security for certain models, right? Foundation models, be it OpenAI, DeepSeek, Quan. Like when it comes to English, like the attack success rates is much lower, But when it comes to non-English at the moment, the test success rate is just substantially higher. So I think that is something that, of course, over time I do think that some other language like Chinese is going to improve over time. But I think when it comes to languages where there's less data, right? The data size is much smaller and stuff like this. I think there's something that is indeed a very important point to look at. So I think as a start, human in the loop indeed might be a good solution to go. So maybe let me now, may I ask Ms. Hong, Asian Development Bank, so what are the unique challenges that public sector CIO, like Asian development is on the public sector side. So when you adopt AI, so what are some of the unique challenges, and how would you balance the innovation with accountability and also transparency in your organization?
Yeah, sure. So Asian Development Banks traditionally actually is to provide a lot of the sovereign financings for many of the infrastructure projects, whether it is a building road, whether it is a building a port and a hospital and school. Our traditional approach is really in a way that is dealing with the government officials. And gradually, we actually also realized that many of the developing member countries are also actually have the ambition that they wanted to participate in the new digital realm. For example, they will reach out to us and say that, okay, we do need to have, the core infrastructure, which is in the next session, I will talk about how do we actually bridge the digital divide, especially with connectivity and electricity. But at the same time, I think the second question, which is closer to my heart, is how do we actually build up the digital literacy and capability in the developing member country? So there are a few things that we also need to watch out for is affordability. Because in the modern world, in the modern city, I think everyone will have at least, for me, I have 3 phones, So this is a kind of the new style that we will have. However, in some of the rural area, especially women, they don't even have a phone. So how do we actually address some of these affordability issues, to make sure that they can use, and also that have, that kind of a training to work with. And we also looking at, some of our work. No matter how many hospital, road, and school that we have built, if there are natural disaster, say flooding, let's say a typhoon, and a major disaster, actually most of the thing would disappear. So over time, I think as a development bank, we shifted our focus towards on climate change. How do we actually encourage the governments to look at climate adaptations, projects, or climate mitigations project? I think the buzzword, many of the people will talk about renewable energy investment. However, in the developing country, the energy transition is more important than just investment in the renewable energy, because many families still rely on the traditional, fossil fuel and all this oil and gas industry. So we need to actually have a energy transition mechanism. And that comes to our second shift, which is we have to mobilize private sector investment, what I call co-financing. Our target is to actually to be able to raise 100 billion for climate finance by 2030. And if we were able to actually leveraging on the private sector co-financing, even just take one-on-one ratio, we can raise 200 billion into some of the climate finance projects. So that is the second piece. And then the third piece is really come to the digital transformation piece, is that how do we actually help the developing member country to actually build up the foundation layer, which is really the connectivity, electricity, computing, and mobile capability. And then the next level, it is really about policy, regulations, capability, and skills development. And then on top, you do need to have some what we call the digital public infrastructure, such as identity, registry, because this will help enable the e-government services and data sharing platform. and we are also advocating what we call the regional public good, is that many small countries, they would not be able to have the resources, expertise, and financial resources to actually build up the capability. So how do we group them together to support them? So we have our Central Asia Regional Cooperation Program. We have our Pacific Islands Regional Cooperation Program. And these are what we call the digital public good, that we can actually build things on top. For example, some of the things that we are doing related to climate change, intelligence, analytics and all this. We now would be able to actually do flooding and weather changes, forecasting, and we can actually advise the government in terms of how they can actually do coastal protection, glaciers melting protections, and all the other things. So that is the work that we have been doing. Not just private sector, but also engaging the private sector to go on to our mission.
Thank you. That's really, really meaningful. Thank you so much. May I direct a question to Ms. Wong? So HSBC has 41 million customers across 58 markets, right? Now, this volume of data obviously is going to be very helpful to improve the LLM accuracy and the model training and all that. But then there's also local regulation as well, right? So how would you balance the two factors as a CIO?
Very, very good question. So don't be too excited. That's like a moment where my excitement have to also balance by the risk profile, right? All this actually local regulation on, so I think what we actually mean here is a cross-border data transfer and actually data localization regulation. They all exist for a reason, a good reason of actually that particular jurisdiction. When we look at, it's very excited that we have all these data, but when we take a step back is AI could not success actually without a proper data. And then with actually a proper data, actually data governance is super important. I'm sure actually Stephanie actually will share that with me as well from a public sector point of view. So what we look at that is always take a step back is even before LLM, before Gen AI, before AI, we have put in place a very robust data governance. So even when we use the data internally without training the LLM model, what are the data governance that we have to follow? Data governance actually would mean how we classify the data, whether they are public, private, or internal, restricted, how the data should be stored, how the data should be moved, and how the data should be used as well. So not every single piece of data the customer actually grant us the consent and the user to use or train LLM, for example. So before we have that very excited and saying the opportunity of using data to train LLM model, take a step back and look at our data governance. So we always have our data governance actually support as a foundation of all the transformation and all the innovation we do. Otherwise, like what I said in the beginning, if we lose trust of our customer, then we're no longer a bank. We're a bank, except based on the trust actually that people give us. So I would say, to answer your question, say it's not a balanced act. It's almost like data governance first, regulation first, before we actually look at the opportunity of the train the model.
Perfect. So now I want to kind of wrap up the session and ask a question for everyone. And this is extremely important. So do you anticipate the generative AI products to actually move into production phase in 2025? Well, because obviously, like POC is pure investment, right? It's only production stage that you can really reap the benefits of, the investment to get into productivity. And what are the obstacles, if there's any, and how do you plan to address these obstacles to get generative AI product into production phase?
Sure. So one of the things that we have been actually working on is to set up the governance for using AI. So we do actually have a whole of 1ADB's AI working group and also subcommittee. And these are the key business stakeholders who actually then determine what kind of use case that we can actually use. And second piece that we have been actually working on is what we call the responsible use AI framework. And this responsible AI framework, actually, we have learned from the ISO, we learned from NIST, and also UN in terms of NEU, in terms of the responsible AI. So we set out, actually there are 8 principles that we will follow. For example, people and planet first. Whatever we do, we need to actually watch out for unintended consequences and harms that caused by AI. So we need to actually put our head on people and the planet first. Then second piece, which is I think Charlotte mentioned about data. So we need to actually looking at privacy, protections, and data integrity. Third one, it is more to me, I think, is what we call the fairness and inclusiveness. Because, human, we actually have biases. So if you are using some of the past data to actually train your AI, what happens if the past data actually have biases? So are we going to automate, the biases into the AI recommendation? So we need to watch out for fairness and inclusiveness. Of course, all comes with other things like security, safety, reliability, because some of the AI potentially will actually have been used in some of the environment that could be autonomous. So we need to actually do a very thorough, what we call the risk impact analysis, whether there are financial harm, whether there is a human harm, environmental harm, and then based on the probability, we have to actually make a very conscious decision on whether this use case is should be able to go live. So that is some of the things that we are looking at. Of course, the last one, I think it is, you mentioned about accountability and transparency, because when we build up the model, we need to be able to explain to people how we develop the model, even though sometimes I could explain LLM to the business holder, but they may not know exactly the technical detail. But we have to share with them that, hey, look, currently the way we do is temperature is 0, meaning is that this system do not hallucinate, because we have to use all the source of the data as references. So those are the things that technically, from a system card perspective, you can actually implement certain things. So that is how we are doing it. And we actually come up with this, what we call the risk and assessment tools. For every single use case, we will have to go through this assessment in order for us to actually productionalize on the AI use case. So that's a few things that I think it is a key important effort that we are doing.
Okay. Look, for me, 2025 is about us doing something that works and demonstrate value. So we're going to focus on getting the contact center transformed, because when we worked with the contact center, we saw that fundamentally the contact center business and the way they operate has probably not changed for 10 years. Still very people intensive, still lots of churn, lot of training, not sure of the quality of the person, spending a lot of time trying to make sure that we have an army overseeing the contact center agents. And all of that is fundamentally very manual. So we've come up with a model with the contact center on how the agent can now become productive earlier, because they will have an assistant. We don't need such an army to oversee the people. The QA team would be smaller, overseeing the AI results. We would actually know the quality of every call and the customer satisfaction. Today we rely on a end of call survey where customer volunteers. So we also, besides getting more efficiency, trying to show that we can fundamentally make the contact center much better business. So that's our objective for this year. In parallel, we're sorting out a lot of the other things. I mean, for us, the data privacy is the key concern under PDPA. In terms of the ethics side and that, we're making sure that through this, the message be no one's losing their job. We're actually reskilling, redeploying people into the contact center to the other roles. The contact center was heavily support. We're switching a large percentage to sales. They're actually quite happy because they get basic plus commission now. So the business is sort of pulling us along, so which is quite nice. We're not fighting it. So I think our objective is by the end of the year, we can tell a story where we've added value and then we can really push on to the next phase.
Charlotte?
Well, one important step to actually move from POC into production is whether something is scalable. Like super important. And in order for something to be scalable, from an AI point of view, we would need to be able to explain the model. So what actually the result actually coming out is actually a human explainable actually result. In order to do that, when we do all our POC project on AI, any pilot user who actually sign up for the pilot of that use case have a responsibility to send back feedback to the model. So this is actually the whole feedback loop. And I'm very actually happy that actually one piece of actually from POC to production that we could really put, like don't be too excited if you're a customer, not a customer-facing solution yet, but actually more internal use to actually use AI generator actually assist the code generation. So as a CIO, when actually we actually use Gen AI to actually a copilot to help us to do code generation, I still have to go for all my testing. So my explainability actually happen in the testing, not in the front. So that's actually something that we're actually very comfortable that we could actually scale in production. So that's actually what we're doing.
Fantastic. I think we have a very fruitful panel. And maybe let me recap. I've been to JUMPSTARTER events for many years. And I remember 2 years ago, I think people are still talking about how smart the AI is. It's not smart enough. It's not for production phase. Last year, people doubt on the unit economics. And of course, we all know what happened in the last few months about like the cost of computing, the cost of AI has dramatically improved. I think this year, interesting enough, I think the first 4 or 5 panels and also keynote speakers are all about responsible AI, data governance, and all that, security. So I'm really looking forward that this is something that in the coming 12 months' time, by the time we come back next year, it's going to be something that we really address it in a meaningful way and really can take this into production stage that everyone is going to benefit. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.